A origem das coisas. As ferramentas de astronomia dos antigos maias.
The Kitt Peak National Observatory. There is nothing else like it under the sun. Here on this single mountaintop, there are 2 radio telescopes and 24 optical telescopes, including this one, the one I'm standing on now.
Muito parecido com uma peça gigante de arquitetura moderna, o telescópio solar McMath Pierce tem 150 metros de extensão e foi construído diretamente na montanha. Dia após dia, o telescópio mira o Sol com um olho de vidro de quase 1,5 metro de espessura.
The McMath Pierce Solar Telescope was the world's largest solar telescope. It was completed in 1962, and it was designed to give as large an image possible of the sun to do spectroscopic studies. It produces an image of the sun 3 feet wide, and that's why it's 500 feet long, so that image is not too hot. The light comes in the top of the telescope, which you can see. It's about 100 feet off the ground, and then it reflects down into a mirror that's at the bottom of this long tube. About 2/3 of this telescope is actually below ground. The main mirror for the telescope is down there 300 feet below ground, and then it's redirected about halfway up the length of the tunnel into different observing rooms using a 3rd mirror. The McMath Pierce is famous for determining the basic chemical composition of the sun. It's also done some landmark studies in the magnetic properties of sunspots, and it's also been used to look at the planets.
But we mustn't be too blinded by our modern accomplishments, because even more impressive, especially considering its antiquity, is the temple of Kukulkan. Kukulkan being one of the Maya's main gods. You can see him depicted here as a feather serpent. But this wasn't just a religious site. Thousands of years ago, this was the McMath Pierce of its day, an ancient observatory designed to keep track of the sun.
O templo de Kukulkan se localiza no coração de Chichén Itzá, a famosa cidade maia. Em sua época de ouro, a civilização maia estendia seus domínios desde Chichén Itzá, na península de Yucatán, no México, até as terras altas da Guatemala.
They flourished at least from the 1st century BC to the 9th century AD, although as the archaeologists dig down deeper and deeper into the past and excavate the pyramids, they find that Maya habits went all the way back perhaps to the Olmecs and even earlier. So we're dealing here with a continuous, advanced, progressive culture that lasted for more than 3,000 years on our continent. They had an advanced, sophisticated system of writing. They had a precise calendar. They had observatories. They paid a lot of attention to the sky. And of course, we try to compare our astronomy with theirs. We want to know why were they so turned on by the stars.
De fato, a astronomia estava muito ligada à religião para eles. O Sol, a Lua e os planetas eram os deuses dos maias, e isso se refletia em todos os aspectos de sua vida, até mesmo no desenho, formato e orientação dos edifícios de Chichén Itzá. Em nenhum outro lugar a obsessão dos maias pela astronomia e pelo Sol fica mais evidente do que no templo de Kukulkan. A Terra aqui é tão plana que o único meio de os maias conseguirem uma visão desobstruída do horizonte seria construindo um templo muito alto, na verdade, criando sua própria montanha.
In religious terms, the horizon also had an importance, for it was the bringing together, the coming together place of all the sky earth, as it says in the Popol Vuh, the Maya tale of creation. So here then is the meeting place of the gods of the underworld, who live in those 9 layers beneath us, and the gods of the upper world, the world of the heavens, which consists of 13 layers. And that's the boundary line, the surface of the earth, where we mortals, stand and where we pay the debt to these gods of the upper and lower worlds.
From way up here, the Maya watched the sun rising and setting, all the while taking note of something very interesting, something that many of us today don't even realize.
Somente nos primeiros dias da primavera e do outono o Sol se põe exatamente no oeste. Durante o restante do ano ele se põe ao norte ou ao sul do oeste. E vejam, o que ocorre é que nós criamos uma ilusão que se deve à nossa perspectiva centrada no planeta Terra. Na verdade, claro, o Sol não se move em torno da Terra, é a Terra que se move em torno do Sol. E, incrivelmente, a fascinação do povo maia pela marcha anual do Sol para o sul ou para o norte ao longo do horizonte foi o que ditou o formato e a orientação do templo do deus Kukulkan, a serpente de plumas. Também é o que atrai milhares de turistas todos os anos. Em 2 dias especiais, o equinócio outonal e o primaveril, o primeiro dia da primavera e o primeiro dia do outono, exatamente no momento em que o sol está se pondo, uma coisa fascinante acontece.
Now, to show you what happens, and I promise you it's something very special, I've asked Doug and Ryan to build me my very own temple of Kukulkan.
É claro que será uma versão em miniatura do original, mas será fiel à sua inspiração em todos os detalhes. Isso significa, por exemplo, exatamente 91 degraus em cada escada. Quero ainda a escultura da cabeça da serpente Kukulkan posta onde ela deve ficar. Isso é muito importante, vocês verão por quê em 1 minuto.
Honey, I shrunk the temple, huh? This is awesome.
Thank you.
Right down to the paint job. I mean, I swear this is stone, but I know it isn't. Right? 91 steps?
91 steps.
Really? I'm not going to bother to count them. I trust you.
This is all Ryan.
Is he?
This
Really?
is all him. Beautiful
Was it
job.
fun?
Foam, glue, and paint, Mike.
Really? That's it,
Nice
huh?
little arts and crafts project.
You even got Kukulkan's heads right there where they belong?
Nice little detail on
Yeah.
this, too. Did a great job.
All right, so clear the decks because here comes the sun. It's time to put this baby to the test.
What do you think? Let's go get our suntan lotion, and we're going to work on our tans.
Oh,
Michael.
man. All
Have
right.
fun, Michael.
All right, we'll do. Good job, guys, really.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Behold the sun god. Okay, so this lamp is going to be my sun, and we're going to pretend that it's one of the equinox days, either the vernal or the autumnal equinox. And what I want you to do throughout this whole thing is to pay attention to what happens along the sides of this main north-facing staircase. Remember, this is north. Those are the heads of Kukulkan. The whole thing is oriented north, south, east, west. So what I'm going to pretend to do here is on one of those equinox days, it's high noon. The whole temple is bathed in light. Nothing interesting particularly so far. Now watch what happens as the sun starts lowering in the sky. And again, pay attention to the side of that main staircase there. Do you see the beginnings? And I'm going to stop in a moment. As the sun lowers, look at that. There is the impression of a snake's slithering body, and what's amazing is that it joins up with the head of Kukulkan, so it gives you the whole impression of the feathered serpent. And now as the sun lowers further, look what happens. The serpent's body appears to go up, slither ever so slightly, upward towards the heavens, and as the sun completely sets, Kukulkan slithers heavenward where he lives. And what I find so amazing about this is think of the pre-planning that went into this. They had to orient the temple just right. They had to plan the dimensions of these steps just right so that when the sun hit them, they created that illusion. And all of that had to be just right relative to the equinox sun. Because look, if I move the sun a little northward or southward, which is where the sun sets most of the year except for the equinox, the illusion goes away. You only see the illusion when the sun is setting due west, which only happens twice a year during the equinox days. None of this seems to me to be accidental, and I am so impressed with the Maya that they were able to do that and even wanted to do it. It's an incredible combination of art and science.
E agora você sabe por que 2 vezes ao ano verdadeiras multidões se dirigem a Chichén Itzá e observam a antiga pirâmide construída pelos maias para mostrar seu amor por Kukulkan e para exibir seu conhecimento em astronomia.
Did the Maya build the building that way deliberately? Did they perhaps discover it after they built the building? It just happened to be a coincidence. Or is this all a fantasy of the modern imagination? Well, I used to believe the latter, but the more I look, the more I see it happen, the more I believe the former. That is, that it probably was deliberately arranged. To begin with, there are so many calendrical and astronomical numbers in that building to suggest that there is some astronomy going on there. And when we measured it, we found that it was kind of cocked out of line relative to the other buildings. You'd have to cock it out of line just that way to make the serpent descend on the equinox.
Para os maias, este templo foi simplesmente um aquecimento. A genialidade astronômica e arquitetônica que levou à sua criação permitiu que eles fizessem muito mais que apenas rastrear o Sol.
Here at the Kitt Peak National Observatory, everything is looking up, literally. Telescopes of every description, 26 in all pointed upward, staring at galaxies, stars, planets, moons, asteroids, comets, you name it.
Kitt Peak does every kind of astronomy that we know, from nighttime astronomy to daytime studies of the sun. We look at galaxies, we look at nearby stars, we look for other planets, we look at comets. During the daytime, we look at sunspots and their magnetic fields.
But long before those telescopes, there was this ancient observatory, El Caracol. In the whole of Chichen Itza, it is absolutely my favorite structure. I love its shape, and I'm blown away by how much it resembles a modern observatory. It's believed that in the 9th century, the Maya used this structure to observe and maybe even to worship the planet Venus.
Vênus era importante para os maias. Eles acreditavam que o planeta era gêmeo do Sol e também que era o deus da guerra. Mas nós nem sempre soubemos que El Caracol tinha algo a ver com Vênus. Na verdade, por muito tempo, El Caracol representou um mistério de 3 partes. Mistério número 1. Os lados da base de El Caracol não estão voltados para os 4 pontos cardeais, norte, sul, leste e oeste. Em vez disso, sofrem uma rotação de 27 graus e meio. Por quê? Mistério número 2. El Caracol é redondo. Trata-se do maior prédio redondo de toda Chichen Itza. Por quê? E finalmente, mistério número 3. Os cantos da base superior de El Caracol não são quadrados, mas ligeiramente tortos. Por quê?
Sir Eric Thompson, the eminent Maya archaeologist, the great authority on Maya archaeology of the 30s, 40s, and even into the 50s, once said that every once in a while cities tend to build a building that turns the stomach. Such is the case of the Caracol, Thompson goes on. It was built by architects who had no taste, and it even looks like a wedding cake, obtusely positioned on the square carton in which it came.
Boy, were they ever wrong. Because as you and I are about to see, there was a whole lot of method to El Caracol's apparent madness.
Primeiro, o mistério número 1. Aquela estranha rotação de 27 graus e meio tinha uma função importante. Em razão dela, El Caracol se encontra exatamente de frente para o ponto no horizonte onde Vênus se põe na noite de sua excursão mais ao norte, um evento que acontece só uma vez a cada 8 anos.
As for mystery number 2, why El Caracol is round, well, a round building simulates the horizon. So this structure gave the Maya a 360-degree view of the sky. And see those specially placed cutout windows up there? The Maya used them like peepholes to keep very close track of Venus's comings and goings.
E não se trata de uma tarefa fácil, pois os movimentos celestiais de Vênus são complexos. Durante meses por vez, ele é uma estrela matutina nascendo no leste como o Sol. Então Vênus desaparece e acaba reaparecendo semanas depois como uma estrela noturna pondo-se no oeste ao lado do Sol. É o suficiente para fazer a cabeça de qualquer um girar, mas não a dos maias. Após anos e anos de minuciosa observação, usando somente os olhos, eles conseguiram descobrir tudo isso. Finalmente temos o mistério número 3, os cantos tortos das plataformas superiores. Lembram?
It has been suggested that because so many of the Maya buildings are skewed and so many of the plazas about which they worship are quadrilateral rather than perfectly square or rectangular, that the Maya were incapable of constructing a right angle. I think these deviations were deliberate.
Um canto da plataforma aponta exatamente para onde o Sol nasce no primeiro dia do verão. Outro aponta exatamente para onde o Sol se põe no primeiro dia do inverno, o que dá ainda mais força argumentativa à teoria de que a construção de El Caracol resultou de muitos anos de observação dos céus dos maias.
In the case of Yucatan, you have a flat horizon, perfectly flat, rather like South Florida. It's all this flat limestone with no rivers, only sinkholes. And if you look around you, there are no natural objects on the horizon. So it seems to me that one good explanation for the asymmetry of a building like the Caracol is that the building is distorted to point out alignments where you don't have natural features on the horizon.
para mim, a grande questão é saber como os maias conseguiram descobrir de que forma orientar seus observatórios gigantes como El Caracol e o templo de Kukulcán, a fim de produzir resultados astronômicos tão precisos. E como o fizeram sem o auxílio de telescópios ou qualquer instrumento de agrimensura conhecido?
Frankly, no one knows, but here's a theory. I'm going to pretend that I'm a Maya engineer and I've just been given instructions to build a rectangular-based monument whose corners point to the equinoxes, okay? All I'm going to need, according to this theory, is a sunny day like this, some stakes, some hemp rope, and a clearing. All right, now I've already driven a stake sort of in the center of my clearing. And then I'm going to take my hemp rope, thread it around that stake, and then I'm going to use this rope as a giant compass. And I'm going to hold it in my left hand and be very careful that the rope is taut. Then I'm going to tramp out a circle like this. So always making certain that I'm keeping the hemp rope nice and taut in my left hand. Okay, there you have it. Now I'm going to be patient because in the following year, in the next 12 months, I'm going to stake out 4 very special days.
Primeiro, ao nascer do sol no primeiro dia do verão. Segundo, o pôr do sol no primeiro dia do verão. Terceiro, o nascer do sol no primeiro dia do inverno. E quarto, o pôr do sol no primeiro dia do inverno. Agora traço linhas ligando os pontos em posições opostas. Em seguida, desenho 2 ângulos retos onde serão os cantos sudoeste e nordeste do templo. E sim, lembrem-se, como um maia antigo, eu consigo fazer um ângulo reto. Vejam como.
There are many ways to construct a right angle. For example, one could rule a circle. You can take a rope and stakes and rule a circle of any size, connect a line from one end of the diameter to any point on the periphery of the circle, the circumference of the circle, to the other end, and there you have a right angle. That is a right angle, right there, right at this point, because we're on the periphery and we go to one end of the diameter and to the other. So there's a right angle, and then we can prove it by bringing in our colored square, put it down, and tuck it right up close this way, right up close. There we go. There is that right angle. So who said the Maya couldn't make a right angle? Right? Right.
Right.
Simplesmente alongando as linhas dos meus 2 ângulos retos, automaticamente crio os outros 2 cantos do meu templo. E é só isso. Agora tudo o que preciso fazer é conseguir que alguns milhares de fiéis empilhem pedra sobre pedra por cerca de 1 ano, até que, voilá, eu tenha um templo orientado da maneira correta.
To be sure, I'm not claiming to have proven that this is actually how the Maya did it. I've only shown that this is how they might have done it. At the very least, I'm hoping that my little experiment does away with the kooky theory that somehow the Maya needed the help of aliens from outer space in order to build these magnificent structures.
A preocupação dos maias com os ciclos astronômicos controlava quase todos os aspectos de suas vidas. Como quando plantar, quando colher e até mesmo quando travar guerras. Aliás, mais de 1000 anos atrás, os maias travariam sua própria versão da Guerra nas Estrelas.
Part of my training is in theoretical astronomy. That's a pretty heavy-duty subject. Yet it amazes me how much entertainment has been inspired by our study of the universe. Comic books, TV shows, movies, arcade games. Today's pop culture is filled with all kinds of adventures through outer space. Well, guess what? 2,000 years ago, here in the jungles of Mesoamerica, the Maya had a thriving astronomy-based pop culture too. Take the court I'm on. The Maya used it to play a brutal but popular ball game called Pok-ta-Pok.
As it turns out, there are probably multiple ball games, and we know the ball game must have evolved through time. So the game evolved almost, these aren't perfect analogies, but from being a kind of a soccer type of game to being a kind of a basketball kind of game.
O campo de bola de Chichén Itzá é o maior de seu tipo em toda a Mesoamérica. Tem quase 100 metros de extensão e seus arcos se situam a 8 metros de altura nas paredes verticais que o cercam. Pelo que sabemos, os jogadores tinham de manter a bola no ar usando apenas quadris, nádegas, joelhos e cotovelos. O objetivo do jogo era tentar fazer a bola passar por um dos arcos. Aparentemente, tratava-se de um feito tão difícil que um único gol costumava encerrar o jogo.
The size of these ball courts grew over time to become massive places that could have had many, many hundreds of spectators, perhaps thousands of spectators in some instances. So the nature of the ball game, at least in certain areas, changed to become probably much more recreational. Certainly by the time we know of Aztec accounts of the ball game, people gambled on ball games. People bet their clothing and their finery. There was much drinking at ball games, and it was a sort of a central event in the midst of market days.
Como quase tudo o que existia na cultura maia, o jogo de bola tinha nuances astronômicas e cosmológicas. A quadra representava o universo e o jogo em si representava a luta cósmica entre o bem e o mal.
The ball was thought of as being a heavenly object, perhaps the sun or perhaps the moon, kept in play. And so there's this cosmological component. We also know that from the Popol Vuh, an important Maya book from the 17th century, Quiché Maya of the Highlands, that the hero twins, these foundational figures in Maya mythology, played ball games against the underworld gods, essentially for ownership over the earth, whether the death or life would triumph, right? And these twins, after the successful conclusions of these games and a series of other tasks, became the sun and the moon.
Segundo os relatos, o jogo era questão de vida ou morte para os jogadores, literalmente. Há provas de que o capitão do time derrotado costumava ser decapitado. Eis um novo significado para o termo esportivo morte súbita.
Some have suggested that the losing team captain's headless body was laid to rest in one of these sacred cenotes, pools of water where gods were thought to dwell.
Nos anos 20, o arqueólogo Edward Thompson dragou este cenote em Chichén Itzá e, de fato, encontrou ossos humanos. Ele também encontrou outras coisas, inclusive esta surpresa: bolas de borracha. Elas tinham mais de 1000 anos e estavam incrivelmente bem conservadas.
Check this out. This is a full-scale replica of a poke-to-poke ball. Now, my first impression is that this is heavy. I would say 8 to 10 pounds, which means that if this hit you during play, you'd feel it. It might even kill you if it hit you in the right place. But the most amazing thing about the poke-to-poke ball is this. It bounces. So what? Natural rubber isn't bouncy. It's made that way through a process called vulcanization, discovered in the 19th century. And yet, the Maya were playing poke-to-poke 3,000 years ago. So far as we know, the Maya were the very first people in history to discover and to use rubber in its raw form. And here it is. It's the sap of the Castillo elastica tree, which has the consistency and the appearance, as you can see, of a mochaccino. What's fascinating is that the Maya found 1,000,001 uses for this rubber, what we would call latex today. For example, they used it to make glue. And as you can see, I glued this cup to this lid, and it's a strong bond. There's a little give to it, but it's strong. Now, another application is very clever. They took rubber and they spread it on a piece of cloth, like this. And then what they did, I imagine, is to spread it out with a brush of some kind so that you get some uniform coverage of the cloth. And then what they did was to allow it to set out in a hot sun until it kind of firmed up. And the result, look over here. It's weatherproof cloth that you can make like raincoats and weatherproof clothes from. Now I have a cup of water here to show you what I mean. See how it beads up? Now, another application, one of my favorites, involved taking the rubbery sap and putting it into a container, like so. All right, that should be enough. And then what the Maya would do is they would literally dip their feet in this stuff. That's right. They would put their feet in this rubber and they would
so far as we know, cover the soles of their feet to create a kind of waterproofing or protection for the soles of their feet. This is kind of the ancient forerunner of today's galoshes or rubber boots. And the most impressive application of rubber is what they did to it to make the poke-a-poke balls.
Após extrair a seiva ou látex da árvore castio elástica, os maias adicionavam um ingrediente secreto que realmente fazia toda a diferença. O látex era grudento e se transformava em uma substância instável e seca. O que os maias descobriram foi que, acrescentando a polpa ou seiva da vinha hipomeia, a borracha se tornava elástica e resiliente. Intrigado por esse antigo fenômeno, o cineasta Roberto Rochim encomendou uma análise química das bolas feitas pelos maias e descobriu que a adição da polpa de hipomeia imitava o moderno processo de vulcanização, um procedimento que envolve a adição de enxofre e o aumento da temperatura do látex a fim de incrementar consideravelmente sua elasticidade. A vulcanização foi inventada por Charles Goodyear em 1839, quase 35 séculos depois de os maias terem obtido os mesmos resultados. Nós costumamos falar com desprezo de culturas antigas como se elas fossem primitivas, mas os maias estavam longe disso. Pensem bem. Mesmo para apenas disputar seus jogos, eles conseguiram os efeitos da borracha vulcanizada 3.000 anos antes do Ocidente industrializado. Os maias também provariam ser tão bons com calendários quanto eram com astronomia. O fato de o templo Kukulkan ter exatamente 365 degraus não é um acidente. Calendários são elaborados a partir do que os astrônomos observam nos céus. Vejam só, um ano é o tempo em que a Terra leva para dar a volta em torno do Sol. Um mês é o tempo em que a Lua leva para girar em torno da Terra. E um dia é o tempo que a Terra leva para rodar em torno do seu eixo.
You know, sometimes I have to get away just to relax, but even then I find my life ruled by calendars. You know what I'm talking about. The desk calendar back at the office, a little traveling calendar book, calendar watch. You know, I'm tempted to think that this is all a symptom of our modern stressed out society. But the fact is, 2,000 years ago, the Maya were no different. 88, 89, 90, 91. In fact, you might even say that the Maya were calendar crazy. Take this place, for example, the Temple of Kukulkan. And each of its 4 sides has exactly 91 steps. Do the arithmetic. 4 times 91 gives you 364. Add this top level and you get 365, the number of days in a solar year. In other words, this temple is, among other things, a giant calendar.
E isso é só para começar. Ao todo, os maias eram governados por algo como 17 diferentes calendários. A maioria deles baseava-se em ciclos astronômicos variados. Por exemplo, o ciclo lunar de 28 dias, o ciclo solar de 365 dias ou os 584 dias do ciclo de Vênus. O mais remoto desses calendários data do ano 400 a.C. Para os maias, esses ciclos eram uma questão de vida ou morte. Eram as engrenagens que faziam toda a civilização se mover social, política e religiosamente.
I've traveled to Chetumal in southern Mexico to the Museum of Mayan Culture in order to see this display over here. It represents several Maya calendars in one. Starting with this one here, it was called the Tzolk'in. Now, it consisted of 20 periods, each of which was made up of 13 days. So a Tzolk'in date was a period plus a day. Now, what's interesting about this is that it was an astrological calendar. Each day had certain traits associated with it, like patience, generosity, intelligence. And a baby born on that day was thought to inherit those traits.
Os 260 dias do Tzolk'in parecem se basear em um ciclo que não é exatamente astronômico, mas celestial. Mesmo assim, o que se pode dizer é que esse calendário representa uma estranha combinação entre céu e terra.
260 is arrived at by multiplying 20 and 13, both important Maya numbers. 20 is the base of the Maya counting system, and it comes, no doubt, from counting on the fingers and toes. 13 is the number of layers of heaven. And so when you count through the parts of the body and the parts of heaven, they mix together to form this 260-day cycle. 13 numbers running alongside 20 day names.
This is a small portion of a very large gear representing the Hob calendar. It was an agricultural calendar very similar to our own calendar today. It was 365 days long based on the solar year, and Maya farmers used it to schedule their seasonal tasks like when to cultivate the soil, when to plant seeds, and when to harvest. Having to juggle two separate calendars was a little complicated. So the ancient Maya decided to marry the two together, to mesh all these gears together, as it were, to create one super calendar that they called the calendar round. Now, that leads to an interesting question, which is, suppose I start on day one of calendar round, that is to say, day one of Tzolk'in synced up with day one of Hob. How long do I have to wait before I go once around? Well, the answer is, I have to wait a total of 52 years. That's how long the calendar round was.
Além disso, se hoje nós comemoramos o fim dos ciclos de calendário, os maias faziam bem diferente.
It was a time of great anxiety. Did the offerings we gave the gods suffice? Did the debt that we pay them suffice for our continuance here on earth? Did the rituals we conducted for them, they too died for us, and we sacrificed to duplicate what the gods did, did that suffice? They would only know when the Pleiades arrived overhead at midnight, says the chronicler. For then, when it did, it was a sign to the anxious, waiting multitude that indeed the universe would continue.
Eventually, to spare themselves the sheer agony that came at the end of every 52-year cycle, the Maya invented another calendar with an even longer span of days, called, not surprisingly, the long count.
Os maias puseram tudo o que tinham no calendário de conta larga. Ele se baseia nos números 13, 20 e 360, o número de graus de um círculo perfeito como o horizonte. Prepare-se, uma conta larga completa equivale a 13 Bactum. Um Bactum é igual a 20 vezes 20 Tum. E um Tum tem 360 dias. Fazendo toda a conta, chegamos a 5.125,36 dos nossos anos. Ou seja, o calendário de conta larga dava aos maias muito mais tempo que o calendário circular.
In the calendar we use today, the Gregorian calendar, the beginning of time, so to speak, year zero, corresponds to the birth of Christ. In the long count calendar of the Maya, it also has a year zero, which raises the question, does it correspond to some major event in history too? The answer is, no one knows. What about the last day of the long count calendar, the day 13.0.0.0.0.0? Well, that too is shrouded in myth and mystery.
Em 21 de dezembro de 2012, o calendário maia se aproxima de um de seus marcos. Seu fim. As possibilidades quanto ao significado desse fim tornaram-se tópico de discussão entre diversos círculos. Será que ele significa apenas o fim do calendário? Ou prenuncia o fim dos dias, talvez o fim da raça humana?
So it's coming up. We're near the end of the cycle. I don't think it's necessarily a cycle that foretells doom. I think we all are doom. I'd even say doom seekers. We just love the cataclysmic in our culture. I talked to a Maya Khmin not so long ago at a conference, that is a Maya daykeeper, and I said, what will happen some 8 years from now when the great odometer of time and destiny turns over? And he said, it's my hope that it'll be a time of peace for all humanity. And I have to wonder if there weren't Maya Khmin going around, even in the post-classic period, thinking those kinds of thoughts rather than this doom that's going to happen to us.
Supernatural or not, what impresses me is that the ancient Maya calendars were so wildly, wonderfully complex that even after 5,000 years,
They have us scratching our modern heads and raising our modern eyes.
Para descobrir se talvez os maias tenham visto algo lá em cima que nós não vimos e que talvez um dia possamos ver. Os antigos maias também provariam estar milênios à frente de seu tempo quando o assunto era o tempo. Ninguém no mundo antigo era tão obcecado quanto os maias pela passagem do tempo e pelos ciclos astronômicos usados para medi-la. Seu antigo calendário solar era mais preciso que o que nós utilizamos hoje.
Today, our study of the heavens is a study in contrasts. On the one hand, you have scientists like these at Kitt Peak National Observatory. Theirs is the language of astronomy, of gravity, of singularities, and long-range interactions.
No outro extremo existe gente assim que está por todas as partes. Eles falam a língua da astrologia, da ciência do nascimento e dos mapas cósmicos.
How astrology works is the belief, and I believe the actual science, that the positioning of the planets at the time of birth relate to the physical, emotional, and mental condition of the person. For instance, like you're an Aquarian. You want to explore the world. You're Gemini rising, you like to travel, but you can get very much more specific to each degree, to each planet. And as they come, they develop the whole character of the person.
Os dois grupos não poderiam ser mais diferentes. É como se estivessem vivendo em planetas distintos. Mas o estranho é que ambos têm em comum o grande fascínio e encantamento pelo que existe lá em cima.
What I find so very interesting is that the same was true about the Maya. More than a millennium ago, they embraced both extremes. As astronomers, they mapped the lights in the sky with unbelievable accuracy. And as astrologers, they sincerely believed that those lights could predict the future. And if only they studied those lights, they themselves could foretell the future. And more than that, could control it.
Não podemos constatar esse estado de espírito que mescla a astronomia e astrologia no Código Dresden. Escrito no início do século XIII, ele é o mais impressionante dos 4 textos maias que sobrevivem até hoje. Contém tabelas extremamente apuradas para eclipses lunares e para o movimento de Vênus. Também contém almanaques para o plantio de grãos e uma lista de profecias para ser usada ao longo de 20 anos. Ou seja, trata-se de uma espécie de almanaque do fazendeiro combinado a um horóscopo diário.
What's interesting about the codices from a scientific point of view is they contain a lot of information about the heavens and rather precise information. For example, 5 pages of the Dresden Codex refer to the movement of Venus. A very, very precise calendar, and that calendar can be documented in the architectural orientations. There are also tables relating to the motion of Mars, when it passes retrograde, when it turns around, when it's stationary.
Os fazendeiros maias usavam o Código Dresden a fim de acompanhar os movimentos sazonais do Sol, o que para eles ditava quando fazer o que nos campos. Nesse aspecto, os maias estavam bem preparados cientificamente. Afinal, até hoje, o destino de um fazendeiro é praticamente todo controlado pelas estações. Nós vemos a mesma dicotomia na ligação dos maias com a Lua e os planetas. Como astrônomos, os maias podiam prever eclipses lunares com admirável precisão.
There's an eclipse table, a fantastic 8-page table, charting eclipses in a cycle that repeats itself and can still be used today. We ourselves can predict eclipses using that same table. So here's an eclipse. Then there are these intervals. 6 moons, 6 moons, 6 moons, 6 moons, 6 moons, 6 moons, 5 moons. And there's another eclipse. And you can see the dragon with his open jaws, see him? Eating the symbol of the sun.
Como aspecto negativo, no entanto, os maias acreditavam que os eclipses lunares eram sinais de má sorte. Uma superstição que os cientistas modernos descartam totalmente. O mesmo se aplicava ao planeta Vênus. Julgando pelos dados encontrados no Código Dresden e pela precisa construção de El Caracol, nós temos condições de saber que os maias podiam prever o exato lugar de Vênus nos céus com mais de 100 anos de antecedência e com 99,9% de precisão. De novo, trata-se de um feito fenomenal, considerando-se que tudo era feito a olho nu.
The Venus cycle of 584 days, they knew very well, fits like a cog in a wheel with our 365-day year in the ratio of 5 to 8. 5 Venus cycles equal 8 years. Every 8 years, Venus returns to its same place in the sky, oscillating back and forth on the horizon, back to the same place after 8 years. And the Maya knew very well, for the Venus table tells us, that if Venus made its first appearance tonight, it would do so exactly 8 years from now and come back exactly to that same place.
Ainda assim, os maias acreditavam que Vênus podia influenciar o clima aqui na Terra, uma ideia absolutamente descartada pela ciência hoje em dia.
Well, anybody who thinks that Star Wars began in the 1980s would have to turn their clock back more than 1,000 years, because the Maya were practicing Venus-regulated Star Wars. Some very interesting studies of the stelae, the carved monuments, particularly from the ruins of Bonampak, suggest that there were war events, we read this in the hieroglyphs and in some of the imagery, that were correlated with appearance and disappearances of Venus.
When all is said and done, my lasting impression of the Maya is this. Centuries ago, when they looked up into the heavens, they, like us today, couldn't help but be deeply moved by the grandeur, the majesty, the mystery of it all.
Tanto que para eles explicações naturais não pareciam adequadas. A situação exigia respostas que fossem de algum modo maiores, mais intuitivas, mais sobrenaturais. A ironia, no entanto, é que apesar de toda a sua habilidade astronômica para prever com absoluta precisão a localização do Sol, da Lua, dos planetas, apesar de todos os seus esforços astrológicos para prever o futuro, os maias não conseguiram antever seu próprio declínio.
No one knows why, but in the 9th century, suddenly, the Maya abandoned all their great lowland cities like Tikal, Palenque, and Copan. And it all happened in less than 80 years, so it's called the Great Collapse. In other words, long before December 21st, 2012, which is when time was supposed to have come to an end, the calendar ran out for the Maya. After flourishing for centuries, this is all that remains of their great starry-eyed civilization.